Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Yahweh Shai, that by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that day of Hamashiach is at hand. So, like I mentioned in the previous lesson in 2 Thessalonians 1, there was information going around, right? That was shaking up the minds of the believers, because some were mentioning or pushing that the day of the Lord had already come to pass, and so on and so forth. Okay, and so that's why he's saying here, don't be deceived. Okay, verse 3 actually goes into that. And the when you look at 2 Thessalonians, the first about 8 or so verses, the goal or the point in the way the Apostle Paul words it is, look, the day of the Lord has not come. Okay, and so don't be worried thinking it has happened already, or don't let that mess with your mind. In fact, as I explained to you before, I'm going to explain it again. This is the sequence of events that leads up to the day of the Lord. And until these things happen, the Lord's return isn't going to be here. Okay? So that's what the next few verses really addresses. So I'm going to read verse 2 in the NLT. It says, "Don't be so easily shaken or alarmed by those who say that the day of the Lord has already begun. Don't believe them, even if they claim to have had a spiritual vision, a revelation, or a letter supposedly from us." Verse 3, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." So these are two things that need to happen before the day of the Lord. And the falling away, all right, is what now we look at historically, because it did happen. But what would happen is there would come a period of time through a series of events where even those that believed, eventually they would die. And then you would have the truth or the gospel pretty much, it'll as it says in 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, that have been so long without fruit, right? It's going to be almost dormant. All right. And it happened to the point where not only those that believed in the gospel eventually died, you had Israelites, right? Us as Israelites lost fell from the truth, fell from our heritage, fell from the knowledge of our nationality. And this is when, we went through the whole fleeing, right? During Roman persecution, eventually over a period of time being brought into captivity, right? Fulfilling, what's that, Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Okay, and all the things that transpired afterwards that led us up until this point. So we fell from who we were, okay, and there was a really a great level or a great deal of spiritual rebellion in the world, because the truth had been silenced for a good period of time. In Revelation, in the 11th chapter, it likens us to being dead, our dead bodies. Right now, we weren't physically dead, but spiritually, that's what it was likened onto. That's how far we fell. But that had to happen. Okay. And you had, the world was run with false teachings, right? That's where the pushing of Yahweh Shai looking like an Edomite, the Most High looking like an Edomite, the Israelites looking like an Edomite. The world just got deceived. Okay. And this all, happened during that period of us falling away. But as it mentions in Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, right, and also other precepts, the Lord sent that spirit of life back into us. Okay. And that was a transition from the falling away into the time when the man of sin is being revealed. Because first off, who is the man of sin? The man of sin is not one individual man. It's a particular nation of people, all right, which are the Edomites. Malachi 1 and 3 tells you that. They are the border of wickedness, the habitation of wickedness. Okay. They are the man of sin and the son of perdition. And perdition meaning destruction. And that's what they do. But who would reveal them? The Lord would reveal them through us. So we fell away, but then the Lord brought us back and open up our eyes, gave us the spirit again, gave us the knowledge, gave us the truth. Once again, 2 Ezra 6 and 28. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth that have been so long without fruit shall flourish. And through that, we are revealing, through the Spirit of the Lord, removing the veil and exposing who this man of sin actually is, i.e. the son of perdition. Verse 4, so the Apostle Paul is saying, these things have to happen before the day of the Lord. And those things haven't happened yet. So don't fear, because the day of the Lord has not come to pass already. Verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God. Right. Once again, who does this perfectly fit? Esau, Edom. They have a God complex. You want to see an example of this? Go and listen to speeches and videos done by Yuval Noah Harari, which is one of the representatives, okay, of them. And you hear the way that they speak. They're so bold as to, they push the opposition of creation as we know it to be, right? And they oppose that by framing it as faulty. The the organic has faults. You get sick. This is not efficient enough. This is lacking here and there. But with technology, with AI, with the inorganic, we can replace God. We can fix where he messed up. We can go above. That's them exalting themselves. That's the God complex that they have, right? Above all that is called God. And so let's look into a few of these words here, starting with the word opposeth, to be set over, opposite to be adverse to. And that's why, and even if they don't come out every day and say it directly, which now they actually are, when you look at the direction in which they're going, the world they're trying to create does not further the creation of the Lord. It does not further the glorification of the Lord. It tries to eliminate the Lord out of it. They're trying to recreate after their own image. And exalteth, right? It says to lift, to raise up over something, to lift one's self up, be exalted, to be haughty, right? To be proud, to behave insolently towards. You see, and that's them. That's the spirit that they have towards all that is called God. I think it was the word called, was it? Or maybe it was the word God. Let's go into that word theos. Right. So, you have your God, right? Spoken of the only and true God. Point number 4, whatever can in any respect be likened unto God or resemble him in any way, they are adverse to it and they lift up themselves above it as though they can do better than God. So that he, the man of sin, as God sitteth in the temple of God, shewing himself that he is God. And that's their mindset, to replace the God of the Bible, right, with themselves, right, their new God, so they can basically get the world to worship them, to show themselves that they are better. You don't need the God of the Bible anymore. That's how they're designed, and that's why they oppose all that is called God. So the Apostle Paul is saying these are the traits of the son of perdition. These are the traits of the man of sin. Well, guess what? If if the Most High is a God of life and you are opposing him, then it makes sense as to why you were called the son of perdition. Verse 5, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things? So he's now reminding them, saying, look, when I was there, preaching unto you, I explained these things to you already. Did you forget about that? Let's read this in the NLT as well. It says, don't you remember that I told you about all this when I was with you? And now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. And what the Apostle Paul is saying here is, I've listed out to you already the things that have to happen before the day of the Lord. Okay, and you already know what withholdeth. Withholdeth is basically to hold back. So in other words, verse 6 is saying, you already know what is currently holding him back, so that he can be revealed, as it says, that he might be revealed in his time. So he can be revealed when the proper time comes. See, so and that's the Most High, right? The Most High had or has an appointed time for when the man of sin would be revealed. So the Apostle Paul is saying here, you already know that he has to be held back, because even though when you look throughout history, you had the Roman Empire at the time, which was of the seed of Esau, right? The pagan Roman Empire. Then eventually, you fast forward into time, the Renaissance era, the Europeans, Esau. But he really grew into that dragon at the time for him to be fulfilled, which is now. So even though they were in rulership for different periods of time, the Lord withheld that them reaching their peak, because they would be revealed as the man of sin at the peak of their wickedness. But these events were withheld for a period of time, because it wasn't time, at the point when the Apostle Paul wrote this, for them to be revealed. Other things needed to take place first. Verse 7, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way. Okay. And as it says, the mystery of iniquity, we know what iniquity is, right? Which lines up with the man of sin, iniquity and sin. So the mystery of iniquity doth already work, meaning at the point when Paul was writing this, you already had lawlessness, active. Okay. But it wasn't in the full manifestation. Okay. And this was happening through the Roman Empire, because they are once again of the seed of the man of sin, of Esau, Edom. And it was already at work, right? The roots were there, but that wasn't the moment in which they would reach their peak, i.e. the time for them to be revealed. But the seeds were already there. They're already planted. Okay. And it says, only he who now letteth will let, meaning that the one who is currently restraining them will continue to hold them back. That's the Most High. Remember, there was a time for all these things to manifest, but it wasn't at that time. The word letteth in the Old English, or when you actually go into the meaning of it, it means to restrain or to hold back. So let's go into that. Kateko, it says to hold back, to detain, to retain from going away, to restrain, to hinder the course or progress of. So we know this man of sin there were certain things that he had to do, certain things he had to fulfill to reach a certain point where the Lord would put the Spirit on us on the earth to reveal him, right? And he would be made known, i.e. this is the man of sin. So it says here, point 1, number 2, A, read 2 again. It says to restrain, hinder the course or progress of that which hinders anti-Messiah or Antichrist from making his appearance. To hold fast, keep secure, keep firm possession of. So when you go back, the Apostle Paul is reiterating the point to them that, yes, the mystery of iniquity is already at work, right? You have this wickedness, this lawlessness is already at work, but now isn't the time. They're still being withheld. Okay, the time for that revelation of the man of sin is not now. It hasn't hit yet. So he is being restrained until he be taken out of the way. Now, in the English, this wording can be a bit misleading, because taken out of the way doesn't mean to be destroyed. All right, when you actually go into the word taken, it's basically what he's saying here, until he be taken out of the way, meaning until that restraining, that time of them being held back, is removed. Okay, and then they can be allowed to really, come on the scene, right? Embody that spirit of the man of sin, reach that peak of wickedness, so that they can be revealed, and then they can be destroyed. So this is the word taken, genomahi, to become, i.e., to come into existence, begin to be, receive being, to become, i.e., to come to pass, happen of events, to arise, appear in history, to come upon the stage, right, of men appearing in public, to be made, finished, to become, right? So the word taken, right, when it says to be until he be taken out of the way, in essence, the verse here, Paul is saying that the mystery of iniquity is already at work. But the man of sin that has to be revealed, he's not going to be revealed in this time. He's being held back. That point of revelation is being withholden, is being restrained by the restrainer, which is the Most High, until the point when he says, okay, it's time for them to come on the scene, i.e., to fully embody, right, that spirit of the man of sin, and then to be revealed. So when you look at the Romans, yeah, they were doing wickedness, but it wasn't in the full. When you compare Esau now, his kingdom and the things he's doing now, to what he did as the Romans, or even back as the during the Renaissance era, it wasn't on the same peak or the same level as it is now. So now that they're at their highest point of wickedness, is also now that they're being revealed, right, as the man of sin. And that's why the verse 8 says, and then shall that wicked be revealed. See? So their wickedness has already started now through the Roman Empire, but they're being withheld from the fullness of it until the time when the Lord removes that restraint, and they come on the scene, in the fullness of their wickedness, and then shall that wicked be revealed. Why? Because they needed one to do certain things, right? I think in Revelation 20 it talks about how they would be loosed, and then they would go and deceive, the nations for a period of time. And they needed to come on the earth. They needed to grow. They needed to become a dominant power. They needed to come up with this new technology. They needed to instill these laws, because the Lord was using them to fulfill other prophecies. So they needed to do all of these things, to be responsible for all of these things, to fulfill other prophecies before the time of their revelation, because they weren't being revealed and being linked back to the scriptures as the Edomites like they are now. That's happening in this time. Okay? And the reason the man of sin had to come on the earth and then be revealed before Yahushua comes back is, well, guess what? When Yahushua comes back, the hour of temptation would have already been on the earth, right? The nuclear destruction, the final destruction, the second death, that's going to be brought about through the man of sin, through the son of perdition. So he had to come on the earth. He had to be revealed before Yahushua could come on the scene. And that's like the antagonist being propped up, put in his position, so that the protagonist can come and take him down. And that's the sort of sequence of events that the Apostle Paul was laying out to comfort, or to resolve in the minds of the believers in Thessalonica, that don't be deceived. Until these events take place, just like the apostles always say now, when we see the things happening in the world, you see the geopolitical tensions and Iran and this, the salvation won't come until the MOTB is made mandatory. Still, that has to happen before this thing goes, full blown nuclear. See, so likewise, the Apostle Paul is saying these things have to happen before Yahushua will make his return, because they bleed one into another. Right, one leads to one, which leads to one, which leads to one. So where we at? Verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So, starting with the Lord consuming him with the spirit of his mouth, started with that, which is also a part of the revelation, sending us out here, the prophets, to speak, to condemn this devil, to sentence him. And then it would culminate with the Lord coming to actually execute that judgment. All right, and put this devil through that whatever it is that was sentenced against him, to actually execute it upon him, and shall destroy him, his kingdom, his empire. And when I say him, I don't mean every single Edomite, because we know that they're going to go into captivity. That's why I mentioned their empire, with the brightness of his coming. That's going to be the actual return of Yahushua. As Paul mentioned in the previous chapter, that he would come with the angels. Okay. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan. That this is referring to that wicked. Okay. And then shall that wicked be revealed, who the Lord is gonna destroy, even him, that wicked, whose coming is after the working of Satan. So when you go into that word coming, it's basically, parousia, his presence, his arrival, right? His mindset, his will is after the working of Satan. And the working, there you go, energia, meaning working, efficiency, energy, right? So this man of sin's energy, his power, his influence is going to be after that of Satan. And that is where they draw their power, their energy, their influence, all of that from, the left hand, with all power and signs and lying wonders. And that's what we see, right? And now they furthered it to the point of the use of technology to create these signs, right? These deceptive lying wonders. Lying meaning pseudo, it's false. It's a false miracle. It's a false wonder. It's it's out of the norm, but it's not done, authentically. It says here, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. So he would use all deception of unrighteousness to deceive and to get them that were destined to be destroyed, because those are the ones that are going to perish. And those that believe and fall for those lying wonders and those signs are destined for destruction, because you're going to end up taking his mark, right? You're going to end up worshiping the beast. You're going to end up succumbing to the influence of the deception of this man of sin. And that's going to lead you to your destruction. You're going to be condemned. Why? Because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. They rejected the truth. They rejected the preaching of the gospel. So there was that salvation was closed to them. And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion. So because they rejected it, the Lord is going to send them a strong delusion. The delusion goes into like a mind of error, that they should believe a lie. See, whom the God of this world hath blinded. So the lie comes by way of the deceivableness of unrighteousness that the man of sin pushes, which leads you astray from the Heavenly Father. And because they rejected the love of the truth, the Lord gave them a mind that would be subject to believing that lie, that they might be damned. Because if you believe that lie and you reject the truth, you're going to be condemned. Who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because God hath from the beginning chosen you through salvation, or Salakia, to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief of the truth. So as once again the Apostle Paul reiterates, but we're always thankful, right, to the Lord for you, because he chose you from the beginning. That's called predestination. The Lord already predestined or ordained for you to gain salvation, and that would be through him sanctifying you with the Spirit and causing you to believe in this truth, whereunto he called you by our gospel. See, so because you were already preordained and predestined for it, when you heard the gospel being preached, that was your calling, and you answered, right, to obtain of the glory of our Lord Yahushua Hamashiach. Therefore, brethren, stand fast, right, stand firm, and hold the traditions which ye have been taught. Remain, remain in the ways or the instructions that we taught you, whether by word or by our epistle. So whether it was things that we taught you while we were there and spoken onto you, or things that we have spoken onto you through our writings, our epistles. Now our Lord Yahushua himself, Yahushua Hamashiach himself, and God, even our Father, which hath loved us, and hath given us everlasting consolation and good hope through grace, comfort your hearts, and establish or strengthen you in every good word and work. And that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Thessalonians, the second chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.